العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Respected listeners, beloved friends, beloved youngsters who are gathered here for this program, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So the theme that we have been discussing with the young men who are here with us is connected leadership. And in essence, the hope and the lessons that we try to give in these discourses and these sessions and the many interactive sessions we've had so far is to bring an understanding and an awareness that as Muslims, we all need to understand that we have a leadership role to play. Leadership is not only for a person who is, what we consider to be a leader, Ala kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyati. That every person has a responsibility. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam likened it to a person who's a shepherd. That you're all like shepherds and you all have a responsibility with regards to your flock. So everyone has some type of leadership role to play. So you can be an older brother, an older sibling. You can be a father, so you have a leadership role. You can be a boss. You can be the CEO. You can be the manager. You can be the imam. You can be as well. You can go as far as being the Amirul Mu'mineen. So all of us, at some point in time, it could be even as small as you're put in charge of a project to lead. So everyone at some point in time has to be a leader. You're the captain of your team, right? Whether it's football team or cricket team, even when you're knocking around and you're chosen as captain, so you're a leader. And leadership comes with a responsibility. Leadership comes with a responsibility. So alhamdulillah, there have been a few sessions that we've discussed various aspects. And today I want to discuss something which ties in with the Easy Good Deeds theme that has been running from the beginning of Ramadan. And this is taken from the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us as believers in such a way that we go through various stages in our lives. Allahu الذي خلقكم من ضعف ثم جعل من بعد ضعف قوة ثم جعل من بعد قوة وشيبة. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first creates us as believers, as human beings, and we are weak, right? So first, initially, you come out of the womb of your mother. You're in need of assistance. You're in need of everything. You can't do anything on your own. You're basically at the mercy of your parents and your caregiver. Thereafter, now you grow young, strong, healthy. You run about on your own, and then you reach the age of 15. Then you reach the age of 20, and you continue growing. Your bones get stronger. Your intellect grows stronger. You start to think that you are at the top of the world. No one can defeat you. And then suddenly what happens? You once again start growing older. Once again start growing weaker, and you get older. So Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min dha'fin thumma ja'ala min ba'di dha'fin quwwatan thumma ja'ala min ba'di quwwatin dha'fan wa shayba. So now comes that other phase of your life. So first, it's like a hill, you're going up, and now you start coming down. May Allah protect all the elderly who are sitting here. May Allah give them good health, extend their loving shadows over us. May Allah Ta'ala continue granting them the tawfiq to be with us to the extent, and let us be able to gain from their experiences. So there's a certain point you'll reach, and then suddenly you start going over the hill. And then you start realizing that, I'm getting a bit weaker. I'm getting more tired. I need more hours. So last night, mashallah, the youngsters were up having a grand time. So individuals like myself and Mufti Sahab and whoever else were up. And I guess we were finding it difficult to be awake at this point of the morning. Right? Well, mashallah, these boys are wide awake, I hope. Or you should be wide awake. Mashallah. So that's the thing, right? So now, that's how life is. Those are the stages of life. You don't just remain at one stage. There are different stages that you go through, different phases of your life that you go through. And one phase that everyone eventually, if Allah blesses you with long life, that you'll have to go through is that stage of old age. So there will always be people who are old, and there'll always be people who are young. Now, how do we balance? How does the old treat the young, and how does the young treat the old? And that's today's leadership lesson. Because when you're part of a community, when you're in a leadership role, you'll not only be with people who are younger than you. There'll also be times that you may become a boss at the age of 29. And you have people who have been working in that company for the last 40 years of their lives. From the time they came out of school at the age of 16, they were working. They're now 56 years of age. They're older than you. It could be that you graduate, you came out of university, you have a degree. So due to the degree you have and you've obtained, you're given a managerial position. You're given a high post. So now what happens, you're dealing with people who don't have a degree, but they've been in that company for many, many years. They're close to retirement. But suddenly, you're placed as their boss. You come out of madrasa and you become imam. And there have been many uncles like uncle in front of me who've been the musalli for many years. You were absent or you came from a different madrasa, and suddenly you are of a different country, and now you come and you're the imam. You're in a leadership position. You're young. But subhanAllah, your congregation consists of children from the age of 2 and 3 until elderly gentlemen and ladies who are the age of 90 and 100. So then how and what should be done? How is it that a Muslim takes all this, or a Muslim leader takes all this and walks with it? How does he go through these situations? Because youngsters, we all know that when we are young, we think we have all the answers for everything. And we think that the old people, they're hard ears a bit. They don't want to listen. They don't want to change. And they're just set in their own ways. It may be true to an extent. They may be set in their own ways. They may have certain theories about how life should be and how things should work. So how then, as a leader, you're going to get that message to them that we need to do it this way and not that way? I think we had a similar discussion with one of the brothers a few days ago as well. So how do we get that message across to them? And also, what is our obligation as being the leader in that situation? How do we treat them? Or how do we have to treat them? Or what are the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have to be conscious of? So I'm going to give you guys some food for thought at the ending, and that's where you'll come in, and inshallah we'll have some fun after, whether it's today or a little while later. But I'm just going to look at a more Islamic perspective as how should a young person see and treat an older person? As I said, I'm going to reiterate, we live in a community in which there will be people of all ages. So just as there are people from all different colors and who speak different languages, there are people from all different ages. So how does a young person, how should he or she treat an older person? Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam relates to us that ليس منا من لم يوقر كبيرنا ويرحم صغيرنا ومن لم يعرف لعالمنا حقه. That he is not amongst us. In other words, that person cannot consider themselves to be a true believer, who does not respect our elders, show mercy to our youngsters, and realize the right and the maqam and the status that Allah has given to our rightly guided scholars, to our rightly guided ulama. So the second part is for the elders. That's going to be touched on inshallah another, and perhaps inshallah I'll give you guys a little hadith that we can analyze and discuss how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam treated the youngsters and how he corrected their misbehavior. Inshallah we'll probably look at that tomorrow. So that part is for the elderly uncles in here. That you can't be a true believer until you show mercy on your young ones. The third part is for everyone. You can't be a true believer until you recognize the status that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted to the ulama. Because in essence, what happens, the ulama, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them such that He has granted them the deen and the understanding of deen. And they're the ones who are going to take us forward. See, when you cut off from the ulama, what happens? You're cutting off from deen. So it's easy for a person to say, oh, we don't need an alim. Or sometimes some people will come and make some not too good remarks about the imam or the mufti of the institution. And in essence, what is trying to be done is you're trying to drive a wedge between the masses and the ulama. Because once that happens, then people will practice. People will act and worship. But they will do it according to how they deem fit. And remember, for worship to be accepted, there are guidelines and it has to be carried out in a certain manner and a certain way. And that is where then the ulama come in. Because if a person stands up to perform salah, but instead of facing the qibla, he faces a totally different direction and thinks I'm doing it correctly, then brother, sister, you're not going to get anything from that. Similarly, a person thinks, no, I'm going to do it this way. You're not doing it according to the sunnah because you don't know and you don't want to listen to the ulamas telling you that what the sunnah is. So instead of gaining the maximum amount of reward, you're going to gain much less. So the ulama or guides, yes, like they're human beings as well, they make mistakes. And that's why we also, just as how we forgive others, of course, the ulama will try their best or should try their best not to find themselves in situations where, people can raise a question against them. However, remember they're humans. And we've got to be forgiven as well towards the fraternity of ulama as well. Now, the first part of the narration is what we're going to discuss. You can't be a true believer until you don't recognize the honor that is due to the elders. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, once he came and he said that he saw in a dream that he was doing miswak. He was doing miswak. And remember, the dreams of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is wahi. That is why for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went to sleep, as he said, my eyes will sleep, but my heart is awake. That is why when Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he slept, he didn't have to do ablution. For us as normal people, if we go to sleep, we got to do ablution, right? We got to do wudu. So Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that I saw myself, I was doing ablution, and then when I was cleaning my teeth with a miswak, with a siwak, and two persons came to me. One of them was older than the other, and I gave the siwak to the younger one. And then I was told, no, give it to the older one. And that was what I did. Another thing that we have to remember is another narration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said, هَلْ تُنْصَرُونَ وَتُرْزَقُونَ إِلَّا بِضُعَفَائِكُمْ. That in reality you're assisted, you're given your sustenance. I touched on this a few days ago as well. You're assisted and you're given your sustenance due to the du'afa, due to the weak ones among you. And the du'afa, some scholars say that is the elderly. That is also the elderly. It also includes those who are weak, those who may have a sickness, those who have a handicap, they can't go about life in a normal manner. Allah says, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructs us that you shouldn't think of these people as being a burden to you. Never think of that. Some of the brothers who are with us, Brother Ismail has a physical disability. Now his siblings and his cousins and family members should never think that he's a burden. I know they don't think like that, but I'm just giving what they can gain from it. Never think that he's a burden. Why? Because in reality, your sustenance and the khair and the barakah that Allah is bringing to you, sometimes it's due to Him. It is due to Him. That's why we never look. Sometimes a person thinks that I have an elderly mother or father to take care of. And that takes up half of my time. You may think it's taking up half of your time. But you know what? They're bringing barakat and blessings into your life. So anytime a person, we discussed this, that a person has a brother or a son who's studying ilm, studying knowledge, and you're thinking that, oh, this brother of mine, he's wasting his time. You know what? His studying knowledge is bringing about that barakat into your home. So sometimes we think that the elderly, they don't really serve a purpose. Or they're just there, they're taking a space in the house. If you think about it, in the Muslim world generally, there are no old people's homes. Why is that? The reason is that as Muslims, we take pride in looking after our elderly people. We take pride in that. Because we know that they're the source of barakah and blessings. The moment that grandfather or that grandmother or that mother or father who's reached old age is lifted up, the barakat stops. The blessings come to an end. They bring the barakah with them. Another narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions that a person who disrespects someone who is elderly, he will not die except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends someone to humiliate him in old age. So you remember, what does the Quran say? Hal jaza'ul ihsani illa al-ihsan. You do good, you'll get good. So if on the other hand, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a family member whom you're humiliating or you're disrespecting. It could be you as a Muslim youngster running about in the masjid, and an elderly chacha is telling you something and you disrespect them. You say bad things about them. You do something that humiliates them. What's going to happen? You're not going to die. Of course, inshallah, you do tawbah, you patch up. Inshallah, Allah will protect you. But otherwise, what will happen is that you will see that when you get old, Allah will make such young people who will do the same to you. Who will do the same to you. There's an incident I read in a kitab that there was a youngster, there was a man who was dragging his father. Outside. He was pulling him out of the house and he was dragging him. And he was dragging him on the street. And an onlooker was there saying, young man, what are you doing? You are taking your... And he's admonishing him. But the young person isn't listening. And the father wasn't saying anything. He's being dragged. They reached a certain point, and the father shouted out, son, stop. Stop. And the son stops. And then he said, it was until here that I dragged my father. It was until here, this same spot, that I dragged my father. So therefore, don't proceed anymore. In other words, he behaved like that with his father. Allah gave him a son who did the same thing to him. May Allah protect us all. So we disrespect and dishonor our elderly, then what will happen? Allah will do the same to us. On the other hand, there's a weak narration. It's been said that Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq was asked, radiyallahu anh. He was asked because people used to see that a lot of young people flock into Abu Bakr. And people were honoring Abu Bakr. So he was asked, Abu Bakr, what has made you, what did you do that has granted you this position that all the young people want to be around you? And they serve you, they look out for you, they look after you. Abu Bakr had an amazing personality. So he said that the reason is that when I was young, I used to look after my elders. I used to honor my elders. So the ball, beloved friends, is in our court. We look after and we understand that the elderly in our community, they're a source of mercy and blessings for us. So we look out for them, we look after them. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, during his khilafah, he realized that once he was walking, he saw a person, he was a Jewish man, an elderly Jewish man, and he was there begging. Sayyidina Umar asked him, what's happened? He said, I have to give the jizya, the tax that is levied against the Muslims who are living in a Muslim land, so that Muslims will give them total protection, etc. So I have to give that. So Umar said, no, you go home. You go home. And he told the treasurer, you look after this man. He's an elderly man. He gave the jizya in his younger years. He doesn't have to give it anymore. We look after him now. So as a young person, we have to do what's called ihtiram, and we honor our elderly. And of course, different cultures will have honoring and the meaning of what honor is in different manners. So according to your culture, once it doesn't go against the Sharia and the rulings of Islam, we honor our elderly. If need be, we have to go and assist them in some form or the other. They need groceries being to collect. They need some help around the home. Sayyidina Abu Bakr again. He's seen at night that he is going to someone's home. And Umar goes and follows him to realize that Abu Bakr is serving an elderly lady who has no one to look after her. Radiyallahu anhu. Umar turns around and does the same. Abu Talha follows him to find out what he's doing, and realizes that Umar is going and assisting an elderly person who had no one to serve them. So that's also part of being what a leader is. That a leader leadership is not about only giving orders. Leadership is about service. Leadership is about service. There's a story that there was one of the scholars, Maulana, I'm trying to remember his name. He was the ustad and the teacher of Hazrat Mufti Muhammad Shafi Uthmani, rahimahullahu ta'ala. We used to call him Miya Sahab. So one day Mufti Shafi Sahab rahmatullahi alayhi and Hazrat Miya Sahab and one other, they were traveling. So when they were traveling, they said, Hadrat, when we are traveling, you appoint an Amir. The boys from Barbados, there's no mashallah, appointed an Amir when they were traveling. So the Amir, they said, Hadrat, you are our elder, you're our senior, we appoint you the Amir. So Hadrat said, on the condition that you will listen and obey. You will listen and you'll obey, you'll follow whatever I say. So they said, Hadrat, of course, you're our Ustad, you're our Amir. We listen and obey. Hadrat said, okay, manzoor hai, no problem, I will do it. He took up the luggage, the bags, and he put them on his head and he started walking. He said, Hadrat, what did you say? You said you'll listen and you'll obey. You appointed me as Amir, so I will serve you. And he didn't allow them to lift even their own baggage. Because that's what being a leader is about. A leader is one who goes and serves. Right? Servant leadership, inshallah, I think Mufti Abrar will touch on that as well, is a concept that we learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let's be there for our elderly. We look out as young people. We should try to see that there's an elderly uncle, elderly auntie who's in need of some help. Let's make that move. Let's go and assist them. They need their yard cleaning. Perhaps the house needs a coat of paint. Let's go and help them. So that's essential. So that way as well, we'll honor them. Another thing is important is that what the elderly people have that we don't have is experience. And experience, beloved youngsters, is something that can't be bought, or you can't just learn from a book. Experience usually comes from being around people and learn on the job, as you say. But they have experience. And by sitting with them, you'll learn many tricks of the trade and many shortcuts to get to your destination. Because remember, they've been there, done that. So sit with them. And I encourage the youngsters as well that, the stories of how our parents and our ancestors came to these different countries and islands. Let's sit and take out some time and talk to them. Let's hear about how the struggle was when they first started. Because everyone has a story to tell. And the elderly, they love to give stories. You may have heard it 20 times or 30 times, but still listen to it. Because as a person gets older, that is all they have to say. That, sometimes they think that what's left of life. We should never make them feel like that. Be there for them and learn from them, because when you know what your past was and where your ancestors come from, that drives you even more. And that oral tradition, inshallah, will continue with us. That oral tradition will continue with us. Sometimes the boys laugh when I say that, you need to know your ancestors. There's a narration in which the messenger pointed that out, that know who your family lineage is. And why is that important? That is important because families have certain rights that non-family members have over you. And unfortunately, many of us and the younger people nowadays, they don't know who families are, who's the great-grandfather, or who's the third uncle down the line. It's also essential to learn these things, and that the elderly people usually have this knowledge at hand. So sit with them, converse with them, learn from their experience. And in instances, we do mashwara with them, we consult with them. So these are a few things, inshallah, by which we can acknowledge the seniority of our elders, and inshallah, by which we'll be able to be deserving of the hadith, inshallah, or that we would have honored them, then, and we'll be perfect Muslims. And inshallah, when we get older, and as we get older, there'll always be people who will be there to look after and support us. The question then is, what if you have someone who's quite difficult? What if you have an elderly person in the Jamaat who is a difficult person to deal with? What if you have an elderly person in your family circle who's always criticizing and being very, very critical? Everything you do, you can do nothing right. In my day, we used to do it like this. So how do you deal with that? Well, we'll discuss that, inshallah, after. That's food for thought for all of you. And then, inshallah, at a later session, inshallah, we'll discuss these things. Because now you have to reconcile. On one hand, the hadith is telling you, and the Quranic verses and Allah's Messenger and the Sahaba's actions are telling us that we have to honor our elders. We have to show them the utmost respect. But practically sometimes it can become difficult. So how do we blend that? How do we deal with that? So I'm throwing that out to you, and inshallah, that will be answered in one of the next sessions, inshallah. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun alal mursalin, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin, wa rahmatullahi.